Afternoon all. I thought we could do another opening video today, so my good friend here, Paul Georgiou, who's feeling confident after doing well in the tournament over the weekend as well.
Yes, I won the St Albans Congress.
Excellent,
with
Paul.
Richard Tozer, first equal.
So he's an IM, isn't he? You've done well against IMs. You drew with him in one of the rounds.
I drew with him. It was a very tough, complicated game. Quite interesting.
And so we're going to do on the Ruy Lopez with A6 this time. The Ruy Lopez is absolutely gigantic. We're going to split it into two parts, aren't we? So A6 first, and then maybe another week, non-A6.
Yes. Well, the Ruy Lopez is also known as the Spanish. Was first pioneered by Spanish priest Ruy Lopez in the 16th century. I believe he also advised setting up the board so that the light was shining in your opponent's eyes.
Really? That's a bit naughty, isn't it?
It is, especially for a priest. But and this opening has, been the most popular opening in the history of chess. I mean, more than Sicilian, because it's just maintained its status throughout. Yes.
In the World Championship hasn't it's been used extensively, hasn't it? In virtually many of them.
Yeah, it was a big opening in the 16th century. It's remained so to the present day. And it's just a massive, complex web of variations. We can't go into everything, but we can have a brief taster of where things can go.
Yeah.
There are positional lines, tactical lines. I mean, really, it is, one of the... maybe the greatest chess opening of all.
You've mostly played on the white side and not the black, so you usually play the French, don't you, or the Caracan?
Generally, yes, but I do play e5 sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to let you do most of the talking, actually, on this video, because I'm still depressed after last night's disaster.
Okay.
Disaster game. So, okay, so the Ruy Lopez, white attacks e5 and black defends.
Yeah, and white plays bishop to b5.
Actually, I remember on Chess Bowl this thread that this style of chess is like arm wrestling, that there's an increasingly greater pressure being put, basically in effect, on e5 or defending e5.
Well, white's just pressurising down that diagonal. The knight is on that diagonal can be taken, but also the king is there as well, which comes into play in some lines.
Yeah, it's a logical move, bishop e5, so arguably the best move, really, in the position.
Arguably, but also the most analysed as well.
So a lot of people just do anything else. They play the king's gambit, or a lot of people just do all sorts of other stuff instead of bishop b5. Because also, I think, isn't it true that the Marshall gambit's dented the popularity a bit of playing bishop b5? Because the Marshall gambit's quite a strong counter gambit, isn't it? If white plays,
I mean, to an extent, yes. We'll look at that later on. But really, I mean, white can avoid the Marshall in a number of ways as well. But the Marshall is holding up very well at the top grandmaster level, not in order just to get a slashing mating attack, but to get long-term positional compensation. Yeah,
Adams uses still extensively the Marshall, doesn't he? Still to this day. I think he has recently.
He still plays this. I'm not sure. Probably, yes. So, A6 was pioneered by Paul Morphy in the 19th century.
It's amazing he gets credit for this simple move, which I thought would have dated maybe before him, actually. So why would Morphy get A6 credit to him?
Well, prior to that, they just developed a piece.
They just developed a piece? They didn't play A6?
Bishop C5 or knight F6 was played.
Were they worried about losing the pawn on E5, some of them, or something? Because if you
I don't know, because it's well known.
Isn't it?
It's well known that knight takes E5 is not a good move because of Queen D4, and black regains the pawn with at least an equal position.
Shall we have a quick look at this? So check. Unless you want your king interrupted, it's horrible, isn't it? It's not. It's an equal position, even though there's double pawns. It's fine, isn't it?
White has a bad variation of the exchange variation.
Yeah.
He's probably still okay. He's still got his queenside pawn majority, but why have your king on e2?
Yeah. Okay, so bishop b5, a6. That's what the topic of today's video is for exploring. So,
and this move has remained popular since Morphy pioneered it over 150 years ago. Now, white basically has only two options really in this position. He can either play bishop a4 or he can take the knight. So we'll briefly look at bishop takes c6 first, which is the exchange variation. And black can take with the b pawn, but it's not very good. If black takes with the b pawn, white should just play d4, open the centre. Black has a rather awkward position, difficulty developing his pieces. So this is very rarely played. It may not be quite as bad as its reputation, but it's not very good. So black takes with the d pawn, and now knight takes e5 is ineffective. So
Queen d4.
As queen d4. So white has various moves here. Castles is one of the main lines, when now the e pawn is en prise.
Yes.
Because the queen, if it ends up taking on e4, will be pinned against the king. So if black plays, just say black plays g6, for example. Let's just look at knight takes e5, queen d4, knight f3, queen takes e4, rook e1,
Winning queen.
bye queen. So the pawn is actually en prise and needs to be defended. There are various ways of doing this. f6 is a common move, just shoring up the pawn. Now d4 is natural. When after e takes d4, white generally takes with the knight, and the main line here goes c5, knight b3, queen takes d1, rook takes d1, and now black throws in bishop g4, hitting the rook, to try white to play f3, which it looks rather strange to try f3 defending the pawn, but black hopes this diagonal will be weakened along the g1 to a7 diagonal for his bishop. So bishop goes back to e6, and we reach a main line position. This is fairly typical for the Marshall, not Marshall, is it? It's the exchange variation, exchange variation endings, where white has better pawn structure. What white wants to do in this type of position is to exchange as many pieces as possible. If you remove all the pieces, white will have a one ending, because his king side majority is mobile and he can create a passed pawn.
Yeah.
And black can't do the same with his queen side pawns.
Yeah.
But in compensation, black has fairly free play. He has the two bishops.
Yeah.
And if white's not careful, then black can get great activity.
Yeah.
c4 is possible when substitution is followed by bishop c5. And it's an interesting game, but white is slightly better, but it's not seen as being all that much these days.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to the position after castles, another possibility is bishop g4, which is more direct, pinning the knight, and white normally reacts here with h3. Now bishop takes f3 is probably not all that great. White that loses his two bishops, and white has better bishop remaining. So h5 is actually the main move here, which is actually a defensive move, because now if h takes g4, white's getting in some trouble here.
Yes.
Especially if he carries on and plays, say, knight takes e5, queen h4.
Gets mated, huh?
And the game is ending. So f4 to stop the mate.
G3. Yeah.
G3.
Stopping the king's gate.
Queen h1 mate.
Yeah, mating next.
So don't fall into that one. So after h5, I think the normal move is d3. And black, I think, generally plays queen f6. And the thing, black has to watch out that the bishop can't be taken at some later stage. So what will happen is white will play a move like bishop e3, and he'll start to prepare d4, and black will probably have to take on f3 at some stage. And again, white will be a bit better.
Yeah.
So that's that line. It's also possible to defend the pawn with bishop d6, but again, white can play d4, and I think white's doing quite well here. So after e takes d4, you can take with the queen, and you're hitting the g7 pawn.
Yeah.
Again, probably a minimal edge for white.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alternative on move 5 instead of castling is d4. And this is slightly different because white hasn't actually castled, and white may castle on the queen side. So this leads to slightly different positions. Generally, black just takes it, and white recaptures with the queen this time. And after queen takes, knight takes. I think most normal is bishop d7. And again, we reach typical positions where white has kingside pawn majority, black has the two bishops. Lasker and Steinitz played a few games in this line with mixed results. Lasker was generally wide. But it's not really very fashionable, the exchange relation these days. But
there's a delayed exchange. Well, we'll come to that later.
The deferred variation we'll look at later. Fischer popularised this very much in the 1960s, but it's not played so much these days. Generally, white plays bishop a4.
Oh, he had a memorable game in this variation, didn't he? In this exchange variation.
He had a few memorable games. He beat
in the book 60 memorable games.
Yes, I think he beat Geller.
Right.
Or maybe that was in a different line. I think that was in a different line. I mean, but this is quite an easy way for white to play. It avoids all the theory after bishop a4. Black has so many different options, and white can play with a simple plan, develop the pieces, swap them off, try and get a better ending.
Yeah.
So it's a good pragmatic way to play, even if it's not objectively the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so we looked at that. Now we should move on to bishop a4.
Bishop a4. Okay. So keeping more of the tension on with bishop a4.
And of course, this is the great web of the Ruy Lopez. First of all, we're going to start with d6, which is the Steinitz variation deferred. The original Steinitz variation is with 3 d6 instead of a6, and this is actually stronger after moves a6 bishop a4 are added in. So because black has the option of b5 at any stage, cutting off the bishop from that diagonal, and white has numerous options here. One quite popular move is simply to track back and now take the bishop on c6, and after b takes, to play d4. When black can take on d4 if he likes, but again, queen takes d4 or knight takes d4 is possible. And white has a space advantage and black's pawns are weakened, but black has the two bishops.
I think I once had a British Championship game. I won against someone in this. I prepared specifically for them though. I ended up following this Annan game, a castle queen side. It was quite good. But normally I wouldn't take on. I wouldn't play the Ruy Lopez normally, but it was just for a specific opponent. Sometimes I have.
Right, but frequently black plays. Instead of taking on d4, black plays f6, which is rather awkward, and maybe white plays bishop e3, knight e7, knight c3. The thing is, black has some problems developing his pieces. If the knight goes to g6, which is the only logical square really, then white can often play h4.
Yes.
And black is solid, he has the two bishops, but I certainly prefer white in these type of positions.
Yeah.
Black has some problems getting his pieces out. He doesn't really want to play h5, because that pawn will be a permanent weakness, and where will his king go?
Yeah.
So I'm not really all that keen on this. And it's possible that bishop takes c6 is actually white's best option against the deferred or modern Steinitz.
Yes.
But let's look at other moves. c4 is possible, played by Aldrich Duras, the strong grandmaster from the early part of the 20th century. It aims to get a kind of Maroczy bind type position.
5, yeah.
And play frequently with bishop d7, knight c3, and black should probably fianchetto here with g6, and after d4, e takes d4, knight takes bishop g7, bishop e3. Black is probably okay. He can play knight e7 and prepare f5 later, maybe, and it's not played that much these days. Maybe it's underrated, but black doesn't have all the general problems with the Maroczy bind because he has freedom for his pieces. He can swap pieces off fairly easily with knight takes d4 whenever he likes, and several pieces will vanish from the board. So this is not all that popular. So maybe it's due a revival, who knows. Another move on move 5 is the simple d4, but I'm not sure this is thought of as being all that great either, because black can just play b5, bishop b3, and take on d4 with the knight.
Oh, so it's almost a bishop trap.
We're moving to a famous trap here, and now after knight takes, c takes d4. If queen takes d4, this is the famous Noah's Ark trap. Black can play c5, winning a piece.
Yes.
Because queen d5 looks good, forking the rook in the corner and threatening mate. But now black plays bishop e6.
All right, invites a check, but it's
defending
almost
both at the same time. Yes. Queen c6, bishop back to d7, queen d5, and now the rook's defended by the queen on a8.
Yeah.
So now black plays c4.
Whoops.
And white loses a piece.
Yeah.
That's a very famous old trap.
Yeah.
To watch out for. So after taking on d4, white can't recapture with the queen. White can play c3, but I think this is thought of as being not good enough for the pawn. Black just take it. Yeah, I think so. Bishop takes f7, for example, fails to king takes f7, queen d5, bishop e6. Another way of losing a piece.
Yeah.
And the rook's defended again.
Yeah.
So white generally in this position plays not here before. He plays bishop d5 instead of c3. And what generally follows is rook b8, bishop c6 check, bishop d7, bishop takes d7, queen takes d4, and this isn't seen as being all that great for white, because black can get going on the queen side fairly quickly, and if he gets d5 at any time, he should be at least equal.
Right.
It looks better for white, but black has free development, and this is not a big problem. I think d4 is not played that much these days, though who knows. Maybe it will be revived again. Another fifth move option for white is just a castle. Instead of d4. But again, black can play a move like bishop d7, and he's fairly comfortable now. So c3 we should look at. That's the other main line, I would say, apart from bishop takes c6. And black can either play this solidly or aggressively. I think solid is better. Bishop d7 is again a good solid move, and after d4 he can just play g6 and castles bishop g7, and with strong pointing e5, and this is okay. There's a little trap which can come up soon, where once black has castled, black may be able to get a trick in with knight takes d4, and bishop takes d7 will be met by knight takes f3 check. That comes up sometimes in this variation. After c3, black's other move, which was popular at one time, but after c3, bishop on c8, C3 is the siesta variation, which F5, which Capablanca played, beat Reti very quickly once.
F5 here?
Yes, there's a siesta variation, which is quite double-edged and possibly not that good. White should just probably just take it, and after bishop takes F5, just castle. I think the problem is black's got a traffic jam of pieces. His king's in the centre, and black, while it's getting developed, white gets on with it. So bishop d3 is played here, and then rook e1, bishop e7, bishop c2, bishop takes bishop, queen takes, knight f6, d4. And black's knight on c6 is rather awkward, and there are some weak squares such as e6 where a knight can land. Probably best is castles, and d takes e5, d takes e5, which is a game I had once against Stephen Swanson and the Hearts Congress.
Oh,
I think the one I just won, but this was several years ago, and I think I won quite a nice game in the end.
all right.
I believe it was from this position. Certainly, it was the siesta variation.
Right.
So that's the modern Steinitz variation, briefly covered.
Right.
So now we should move on to other variations. So after 4, bishop a4. Another possibility that is not very often played is b5, bishop b3, knight a5. Black's plan is just to get rid of that bishop as soon as possible. The problem is this actually concedes quite a lot of central control to white and doesn't really develop very many pieces. White should play d4, I think, just opening the game.
Not knight takes e5.
Well, knight takes e5 allows queen g5.
Queen g5. All right. I was thinking queen e7 on queen g5. Yeah, just hitting e5 and g2. Okay.
And I think actually we have to take the bishop first, don't we? Because f7 is on.
Yes, I was looking at that.
So you take on b3 on
b3.
Take on b3, and then queen g5.
Yeah.
Or maybe queen e7 is fine as well. I don't know.
Okay.
It seems to be okay, because they follow up with d6.
Yeah.
So that's not the way to play. Just d4, opening up the position, and white should have central control, which should more than compensate for the two bishops. Apparently, what white shouldn't do. Apparently, white shouldn't play bishop takes f7 check instead of d4. It's actually quite tempting after those moves to get the 2 pawns and the king in the centre. But black plays king e7 and
king e7.
And this is apparently good for black if he knows it, which is quite likely he will if he plays knight a5. It does look quite promising from here, doesn't it? Really, 2 pawns and the king on e7, the knight on a5. But I think theoretically black is supposed to be doing quite well, though it's not totally clear. But I think white can get the advantage with d4 anyway. So no, not now.
Sorry.
Instead of taking on f7.
So just d4.
Yeah, I think so.
And there isn't any way for black to try and trap the bishop here, is there? Well, the bishop's just going to go. You can take with queen d4 here.
Queen d4,
or is it?
Well, there's no pawn on d6, so there's no. So queen takes d4. Just looking at this,
c5 queen d5 is possible now, isn't
it? That wins material.
Yeah, it's actually winning 2 in this position. Yeah.
Though actually, no, black can take on b3 and queen takes a8 and knight takes a1.
All right, yeah. So maybe that's some AB.
AB, yes, but I really don't know the theory of this position, or if it is theory.
Okay, so
So this is quite murky, and maybe after queen takes d4 c5, we just take on f7.
Oh right, take on f7 here, yeah. For the check.
Queen d5.
Yes. Might work better here.
King somewhere. We can just take the rook.
Yeah.
I don't think the queen's going to be trapped, is it?
No.
No. Okay, so that's good for white.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go back. So d4 has to be recommended. Maybe d4. Okay.
Okay, so after a6, bishop a4. Knight f6 is the main move, and after castles.
So this is the Russian defence, is it? Or
is it? Okay. I don't know all the names.
Okay.
And well, we're just, there are just so many lines which kind of run into each other.
Yeah.
I mean, the black played bishop c5 here, for example, and after c3, b5, the bishop can drop back to c2, and black plays d6, and d4, bishop b6, which is a type of position that comes up quite a lot. Also, similar to the archangel variation, which we'll look at later.
Mm.
This is actually the modern way of playing the Ruy Lopez. Black used to play passive lines with putting the bishop on e7, but now modern grandmasters often play the bishop out to c5, and more direct, more challenging. Whereas in the 60s and 70s, black used to play bishop on e7 and castle and slowly manoeuvre around. Whereas now black frequently plays more aggressively, and white has to know his stuff in these lines.
Mm.
But going back to yeah, but bishop c after where are we? c3, no, bishop c5. Where are we now? No, I can play b5 instead of bishop c5. Bishop b3, bishop c5. When white could play quietly with d3, this is possible. Or he can also play knight takes e5, and after knight takes d4, bishop takes, queen takes, d6. And then there are some tricky lines here where white plays f4 and black plays c5, and all sorts of random things can happen in these type of positions. I'm sure I've seen Adams play this at one time.
Mm.
After 7, another line after 7, c3. Yep, bishop b3, c3, d6, d4, bishop b6. Black seems to give up a pawn, but it's okay. D takes e5, knight takes, d takes, queen takes d8, king takes, bishop takes f7. Looks like white's won a pawn and misplaced black's king, but after rook f8, black is actually fine. There's pressure on f2, and e4 is on breeze.
Mm.
So if bishop d5, then maybe just take it, and bishop b7.
All right, yeah.
And how do you defend that pawn?
It's really annoying.
Because
Yeah.
f2 is on if you move the rook.
Yeah.
And black's doing okay here, so white doesn't actually play that very much. But these lines are very complicated, and it's impossible to go into all the detail of them. Okay, so next, maybe we should look at the archangel proper, which is after bishop a4, knight f6, castles, b5.
So instead of bishop c4, we had a brief look at b5 somewhere else, but no.
We're looking at a different line.
Bishop b3.
Bishop b3. And the archangel is actually specifically bishop b7.
Oh, bishop b7?
Yes.
Not bishop c5?
No.
I don't know why I've associated it with bishop c5.
Well, frequently the bishop does come to c5. And these lines can, transpose into each other. It's certainly, the aggressive way to defend the closed Ruy Lopez. And there is a line here which goes like this. This is a sample line. c3, knight takes e4, d4, knight a5, bishop c2, e takes d4, b4, knight c4, bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, rook e1, d5, knight takes d4, c5, b takes, bishop takes, f3, castles, and black sacks a piece. It doesn't look very good to me, but apparently this is a line, amazingly enough.
Black sacrificing a whole piece? What's going on here?
I mean, you can check with Fritz and see what Fritz says if you like.
Not Fritz, I'll check with
Houdini.
White's slightly better. Oh, b4, I see. b4, rook e8. So it's only slightly better apparently for...
Well, it changed its mind while it was thinking there.
Yeah. Strange. It's difficult, isn't it, that pressure on d4?
Well, just
if you move the king, then d takes e4. And now queen d5. Yeah, it looks as though black's got a lot of fast development here.
Well, you see, it's saying that white's better, but not by much.
Not much at all, yeah. Amazing.
This is the sort of random line that can crop up in lines like the Archangel.
So look at that. So that was from bishop b7. I remember this a lot. So after castles, you play b5. We'll promote that as a main line tree. Well,
okay.
Slightly, and then bishop b7.
Yes.
We'll promote that as well.
c3.
Okay, so you're saying knight takes, and then so that's about to sack the whole piece. Yes, nifty.
I'm not sure how this is evaluated at the present moment. I mean, it could have been refuted last week for all I know, but it's a sort of line where preparation is necessary for either colour, and it's a long way from the old-fashioned solid lines with bishop on e7,
Yeah.
which we'll be looking at later.
Yeah.
This is modern chess, black playing to win.
Yeah.
Conversation which is not immediately apparent. When you look at the position, you think, well, hold on, white's just a piece up for a pawn, and it doesn't look like all that much. But it's interesting. This is the way they play these days. Okay. Right, another line of the... going back to the position after, say, 5 knight f6, 4 knight f6, castles, where are we, b5, bishop b3, bishop b7, is rook e1 is more solid, stopping this nonsense, and now bishop c5, this is what you were thinking of before, c3, d6, d4, bishop b6, which leads to a typical kind of archangel position, where the black bishops are pointed potentially menacingly in the white king's direction, but black doesn't have the defensive bishop on the king's side, so a very sort of complex, unbalanced position results. Black can maybe even throw his pawns forward on the king's side, though that's very risky with his king in the centre. But black has to be known to castle queenside, I believe, in this line, and white opens up the a5 with a4, and black just ignores it and tries to checkmate white. And white's d pawn ever moves to d5 or takes on e5, then that bishop's diagonal will be opened on b6 to f2. It's a very very difficult line again, in a very difficult opening. Okay, so let's move on to position after knight f6 again. Right, white has several quiet moves here, such as d3 or queen e2 is another possibility. These are moves which are not that great, but they have the benefit of cutting out lots of black's options. Now the e-pawn is solidly defended, White can try and get on with his normal play, and maybe prepare d4 slowly with d3, c3, and d4 later on. But obviously black has a freedom of development. He can put his pieces on bishop on e7 or bishop on c5. But white's, this is a pragmatic move again to cut out lots of options, including the open variation, of course, which is black just taking on e4 with the knight, which is a lot of theory there as well.
Yeah.
But these lines are not seen as being central or crucial. But
is that Worrell attack spring? Is that spring quick? Queen e2 somewhere? Is that completely different?
Yeah, the Worrell is actually slightly different. We'll come to that later on. But this is not actually the Worrell. But I think many people think it is. So, but we can look at this now after knight f6, castles with the queen back on d1, bishop e7. The white's main move here is rook e1, but here queen e2 is the Worrell.
All right.
And the idea of this is generally white wants to put the rook on instead of on e1, put it on d1.
All right. Yes.
Behind the d4 pawn, which
behind the queen, maybe for make d4 a bit more effective sometimes.
Yeah. Well, this is not seen as being particularly good, and for some reason, I think black can just play normal moves and get a fairly comfortable game.
Oh, there's some history I've just seen on my Wiki crypt sheet here. Paul Kaz has played this line several times. More recently, Tyrikov, Nigel Short played it twice in 1992 against Karpov and won both games then.
So it can't be that bad, can it, if you beat Karpov with it? Okay. But it's not played that much, but it's a good sideline. I mean, it cuts out some options. Another move instead of queen e2 that I've played myself is bishop takes c6, which is the deferred exchange variation. Black recaptures with the pawn, and now white has various moves. The point is that black's pieces are not ideally placed to defend the pawn on e5.
I once played I am Peter Large in this. I lost, but it was an interesting game. I think I played like this, playing bishop b2, then later trying to sort of manoeuvre like this. You sometimes get a good game just putting more pressure on e5, but he was an IM at the time, and just outplayed me.
D3 is certainly a natural move. When white will not necessarily play the d4, black now has the two bishops, so white will often play slowly, as you said, after black plays knight d7, which is the natural move to defend the pawn.
Yeah.
b3, and if castles, bishop b2, f6.
Yeah.
And white can certainly consider d4 sometimes, but I think just now knight d2, going to c4 and manoeuvring round on the light squares.
Although some might worry about this clamp if black gets c5, and so maybe some might think there is an urgency to play d4.
But white doesn't want to open up position for bishops too much. But white can manoeuvre around. It's not really a clamp because white has no weak pawns.
Right.
And his bishop, his king's bishop, which may be bad with that structure, has gone.
Yeah.
So he can play for f4. That's quite effective, chipping away.
Yeah.
At the centre, and if black takes that, then white may have some mobile pawns
in
the centre. Also knight h4 to f5 comes to mind. It's a slow positional manoeuvring game,
Yeah.
far away from the Archangel. Another move, instead of d3, which was popular at one time, is the rather odd-looking Queen e1, which I've played a couple of times as well. And the idea is similar. Black plays knight d7, and white carries on with b3, and say after castles, bishop b2, f6. White may now play d4, and after takes, knight takes. The queen may be quite well placed. It can move to c3, or it can go out to g3. And the square d1 has been vacated for the queen's rook. It's not so fashionable these days. It's probably not particularly strong, but it's quite surprising. People think queen e1, that's an odd move. I think Hebden played it once. Okay, so oh yes, we should also look at Nigel Short's old favourite. No, which is d4. He used to like this a lot in his youth. The centre attack, sometimes known as Carl, centre attack Ruy Lopez, which is quite dangerous if black doesn't know what he's doing, but black seems to be okay. He should just take the pawn on d4, and after e5, knight e4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, knight c5. Black will remove the bishop on a4, and black is generally thought to be okay in this sort of position, as long as he can play d6 and liberate his pieces. White tries lines like to put pressure on the d6 moves like bishop f4 sometimes, maybe not in this position, but to try and clamp down. If black gets his d pawn moving, he's obviously going to be fine. I think white generally plays knight c3 here.
I've noticed this doesn't work because knight takes e6, protecting
knight takes e6, yes.
So knight c3 and bishop f4.
Well, knight c3 is a normal move, and if black takes on a4, then queen takes, and that pawn is still pinned, so you can't play. So castles. Bishop f4 maybe now.
To try and discourage d6, yeah.
And the rook can come to d1.
Yeah, try and discourage d6.
Yeah, I don't think that black should play it like this. It's too simplistic, but black should be okay if he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we should move on to the open variation of the Ruy Lopez, where after castles, black takes on e4.
Now this is one reason why some people are put off playing e4. They go into other territory, don't they? Because isn't like Kramnik, for example, drawing even with Kasparov a lot, in that match that the Brain Games match, didn't he use this a lot? This is not the Berlin Wall. That's different. That's without a6. That's a different opening. Oh, sorry. Yes. A6 makes a lot of difference.
It does, because black plays the knight back to d6, hitting the bishop on b5, and the bishop's not
there's
not
no
there
tempo
anymore.
gainer here. Sorry. Yep.
So here, rook e1 is not so effective. It's played, but black can retreat the knight to f6 if he likes. And after knight takes e5, just play bishop e7.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And complete his development. Obviously, white can play d4, and he has free open play. But this is generally not the way white plays the open variant. White generally plays d4 instead of rook e1. And d4. And one slightly amusing sideline that black can play here is just to take the pawn with the pawn, and after rook e1, d5, knight takes d4. It looks like black's got some problems here with the pin on the knight on c6 and the pin on the knight on e4, but he plays bishop d6, and after knight takes c6, he takes on h2.
Blimey.
And if king takes,
Yes.
then queen h4 check is a draw with perpetual check.
Yes.
King g1, queen takes f2,
Yes.
and so on. So white should actually play king h1 after bishop takes h2. Bishop takes h2.
Sorry.
King
h1. Yeah.
And then queen h4 looks rather alarming. And now white plays rook takes e4 check.
Whoa.
And after d takes e4,
Oh, this is queen d8.
queen d8, yes.
Okay, simplify.
Simplifying. Queen takes d8, knight takes d8 check, check for the bishop, king takes h2. And material is, well, 2 pieces for a rook and 2 pawns, but white is thought to be better here, and this is not played very often. Though it is quite an amusing, fun tactical line, but probably not recommended for black. Though I think he's seen to have drawing chances.
Yeah.
It's not actually black's move, but you should avoid f5, generally allowing bishop g5 mate.
Whoops. Yeah. Okay, so
okay, so we'll look at the main lines of the open variation.
So
after knight takes e4, white plays d4,
d4.
and black should play b5.
Right, that line.
b5, not d5. Goodness no, b5.
What is that? A disaster? Or we're going to look at that later. Or
that's not knight takes e5. That's not played.
knight takes e5. Yeah. That's not nice. Ooh.
No.
Got to break the pen.
b5. I've never looked at that, but it's not supposed to. You're not supposed to play that anyway.
Yeah.
Bishop b3, d5, and d takes e5. When d5 is on pre, so black defends it with bishop e6. But white has a couple of main moves here. c3 is one of them. When black can either play bishop c5, which is quite aggressive, and after knight bd2, castles, bishop c2, black can actually play knight takes f2, which is the Dilworth attack, which was invented by a British amateur, Vernon Dilworth, I think in the 1950s, and it's still seen as an absolutely viable try for black. After rook takes f2, black plays f6.
Oh yes.
And after e takes, he then takes on f2. And after king takes, queen takes f6. And black is seen as having good compensation here. These pieces are very active. All these pieces are coming into the game. Rook can come across the e8 very quickly.
Yeah.
This is not seen as being particularly favourable for white. So I think he's seen as white is still okay, but white generally doesn't go in for this line. So, so after c3, black can also just play bishop to e7 when white has various perfectly reasonable moves. Knight bd2 is fine. Bishop e3 is also fine. Rook e1 is also fine, and bishop c2. We have a typical position, but black would like to get his c pawn moving when you have a nice centre. White has some attacking chances on the king side where the bishop drops back to c2 along the long diagonal. Black may end up with some weak dark squares. White may be able to push with f4 and f5. The knight on e4 may end up slightly hanging around. White is a bit better, and there's lots of interesting play and complex lines here. Another move white can play instead of c3 is just knight bd2, and then black drops the knight back to c5, and white plays c3. And here d4 is possible, and again this is rather a complex line. See, black is slightly loose, but he has freedom for all his pieces. I think this line came up in one of the Karpov-Korchnoi matches I seem to remember. I didn't remember Karpov won a nice game. I think it may well have been after d4. But what black probably shouldn't do is black probably shouldn't take the knight on, instead of d4, he probably shouldn't take the bishop on b3. So after knight takes, white's play is just too easy. A bishop can come to g5 possibly. Also the c5 square is weak. For example, if bishop e7, then white may play bishop e3 and drop something on c5 very quickly, when black's pawns are rather ragged and dark squares are rather weak. So black doesn't actually take the knight on the bishop on b3, and where are we? Yeah, so okay, so c3 black plus bishop e7, and white generally drops bishop back to c2, and black castles, and white has various moves here. I think rook e1 is played, or knight b3, and the game goes on. White is a bit better, but black's got freedom for all his pieces. Yeah, it's the open variation. Black has more freedom for his pieces than in the closed variations, which we're going to look at very soon. Okay, shall we move on to the Marshall variation?
Okay.
The Marshall gambit.
So,
bishop a4, knight f6.
Promote that variation.
Castles, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3. And black's two main moves here are d6 and castles. Castles, they can transpose into each other. But castles is definitely an invitation
for the Marshall gambit.
For the Marshall gambit. And after c3, d5, the move famously played by Frank Marshall at New York 1918 against Capablanca, after he'd allegedly prepared it for 10 years.
Yes.
And of course, as is well known, he lost.
Yes.
Which is rather unfortunate.
Yes.
But it's not actually quite like the Marshall had actually been played before, occasionally by strong players.
But it was version 1.0. It's not like that Marshall wasn't like Marshall we know today, modern Marshall.
No. It's been greatly updated. But I think Karl Walbrot, a strong player around the turn of the 19th, 20th century, had played this move before, but it had not really been noticed until Marshall played it.
Right.
And but white should certainly take on d5.
Yeah.
And we should briefly mention black's other move here, which is e4, which is not supposed to be very good. Apparently white should just take on c6.
Wasn't there a Northern IM that used to play this? I've forgotten his name, unfortunately. Do you know the one?
Horner?
No. Oh, it doesn't matter. If the name comes to me,
I don't know.
Okay.
And black takes on f3. And this is white seems to play. White plays d4. Strangely enough.
Yes, giving up the g2, isn't it?
Giving up the g2 pawn, and f takes g2, puts his queen on f3. I'm not sure of all the ins and outs of this, but white is after g2 will fall eventually, and white is actually a pawn up. Though obviously certain players will sort of appeal to players to black pieces because white's king, can be exposed. But white can also attack black along the g file. So this is not generally seen, but it's a sharp sideline, but tending to favour white, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So knight takes d5 is the move, and now white should certainly take, otherwise black's just got very free play for all his pieces. So white takes, and rook takes. And Marshall actually, in his pioneering game of 1918, played knight f6 here.
Yes.
A move which isn't played these days, hardly, if at all. And Marshall famously lost after he launched a kingside attack, and Capablanca defended brilliantly. His king ended up on c2, I seem to remember. So black's normal move instead of knight f6 is c6. And d4 is the main move here. When there are many lines, but bishop d6, rook e1, queen h4, threatening nasty things on h2, so g3, queen h3, and bishop e3 is normal here now after bishop g4, queen d3.
To defend against bishop f3.
Yep, so bishop f3, now queen f1 stops the mate.
Yes, critical to know.
But black doesn't play bishop f3, because in a minute white's going to play knight d2, and black wants to keep that rather strong bishop. So after queen, black generally plays rook a to e8, and white plays knight d2, and we have one of the normal positions of the Marshall, where black has various options. He can play queen h5, I think he can play f5. I think rook e6 may be a move, I'm not sure. But black has some dynamic compensation for the fact that he's a pawn down. And at one time these positions were thought to be good for white, but black is now tending towards equality. The Marshall is being seen as quite good, not so much as a line to checkmate white with a crushing attack, as I said before, to just get long-term positional compensation with the two bishops. And sometimes black even swaps off into an ending and retains the two bishops and dynamic equality in positions which are sometimes quite difficult to assess. It looks like, well, white's just a pawn up, and even quite strong GM could say, surely white's better here, he's a pawn up, well, what has black got? But there's the two bishops just hold things together, and if white tries too hard to win, he can end up losing. Okay, so another possible line that we should mention, going back to a position after g3, queen h3, rook e4 is also possible. It stops bishop g4 because obviously we just take it. It stops bishop f5 because if bishop f5, then rook h4 wins the queen. So
have a quick look at that. H4. Ouch. Trapping the queen. I know about that from last night.
So g5 is normally played here. When there are all sorts of lines. One line, for example, I think it goes queen f3.
So if you take the pawn here,
and queen f5 forks the rook and the bishop.
And that's a disaster, isn't it?
I think so. So queen f3 is, and one line goes bishop f5, bishop takes on d5. Sorry, c takes, rook e1, bishop e4, rook takes e4, d takes e4, queen f6.
Queen f6.
Queen f6, yes. And I think black play queen e6 here, and white's exchanged down, but for a pawn. But look at the black pawns. Again, it's tricky. It's just one sample line of many. Well, instead of d4, I can also play d3 in the in this position. Yes, d3. And again, bishop d6 is normally played. Rook e1, queen h4, g3, queen h3, and again rook e4 with similar ideas. But the pawn on d3 is more solid. holding the e4 square. And there are some lines where I know that black attacks the rook with a bishop, and white just leaves the rook there and gives the exchange back.
Yeah, didn't Adams lose to Ponomarov one game like this?
Quite possibly. In this particular position, of course, rook h4 wins the queen again, but there have been some games where the rook has just moved to e4 when attacked by a minor piece, has just stayed there.
Yeah, I think we might have annotated that game on Chessboard once. Ponomarov Adams.
Probably. I think yeah, that does sound familiar. I think black. This is black. Cherry plays queen f5 here, I believe, and after knight d2, queen back to g6. No real thoughts of a mating attack. You're just playing positionally. The bishop may come to f5 now, and this is sort of line where the rook was sacrificed. Of course, f5 and f4 may come in, but black's actually moved his queen away from the king.
Yeah.
And the d3 pawn could become weak.
Yeah.
It's an interesting and complex line, which is holding up quite well for black at the moment, though possibly not in the way that the Marshal originally intended. He might be quite surprised to see some of the games played with his line these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we should look at the anti-marshals, I think.
So instead of c3,
yes. So instead of c3 allowing the marshal, white can actually stop it. d3 is possible, which can, and after d6, white can play c3 and play it slowly. But black can play the normal closed lines, position his pieces in Breyer style or Zaitsev style or Shigarin style as he pleases. We'll look at those lines briefly later. But the more common anti-marshal moves are, well, one is a4.
a4 here.
No, with the pawns on.
With the pawn on c4.
No, with the pawn on d2 still.
Sorry. a4 here.
Yes, a4, and black has to deal with the threat of 8 takes b5.
Yeah.
And he can do this by playing rook to b8, or he can play b4. When white will sometimes play a5, though not immediately. But white tend to play on the light squares to play d3, maybe knight d2 to c4.
Yeah.
And black will probably put his knight on a5 before white gets a chance to put his pawn there.
Yeah.
But without leaving his e5 pawn on breeze.
Yeah, sorry, in principle.
But there are some lines. Black can think about that,
Yeah.
because then white loses his good bishop, his pawns are wrecked, and black can blast open the game with d5.
Yeah.
So that's a possible idea in these sort of positions.
Yeah.
Another way of playing the anti-marshal was just to play 8h3 instead of a4, which has the additional thought that this does actually tempt black into actually still playing the marshal, but it's not actually very good, because white can just take it and take on e5, and white's position is just better compared to the usual marshal. The pawn on h3 is useful. He can just play d4. Somebody played this against me once and just got nothing for the pawn.
So, say bishop d6.
It's just not rook e1.
Right.
And now if queen h4, then the knight can come across very quickly.
Or even knight c3 is now possible.
Yeah, possibly. The bishop takes h3 is kind of there.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
know, it's possible, I don't know. But knight d2,
Knight d2.
just coming to f3 or f1 very quickly.
Yeah.
White has faster development than in normal
Bishop
life.
h3 is not on here, is it?
I don't think it is. No, I think you just take it. Or maybe even knight f3. No, not knight f3. No, take it. Yeah. Now queen f3.
All right, and this is not working, is it? Yeah, you're just about defending here.
Yeah. Doesn't. These lines don't quite work.
Yeah.
So h3, tempts black into playing as the marshal anyway.
That's very interesting. I didn't really, wasn't really aware of that. So clearly, no, I wasn't aware of it.
White still has to be careful, but it's not very good. Black shouldn't play d5. Black can play d6 when white can play c3, and we're back to the normal lines.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a problem. But black generally doesn't do that after h3 because he doesn't want to go back into the normal lines, though he can do. I think rook e8 is possible as well.
After h3.
Yeah. And I've seen lines where black tries to get d5 in one move.
Right.
Which saves the tempo, but you have to watch out for that diagonal to f7 though as well. Be very careful. But it's a different way of playing it. Okay, so we've looked at the marshal and the anti-marshals. So now we should look briefly at the closed variations. So after bishop b3, castles,
c3.
c3, yes.
So black doesn't want to gambit now.
But black generally plays d6 first, actually.
All right. Yes.
Instead of castles.
d6. Yeah, it's committing the d pawn. So basically, say I'm not going to be playing. A marshal gambit later.
And now black is actually threatening to round up the bishop with knight a5.
Right.
So white doesn't have very many good moves.
Yes.
I mean, knight c3 can just be met by knight a5.
Yes.
When I say black has probably the better long-term prospects.
Yeah. Now that black stabilised d5, the knight's free to move. So c3 must be the move.
Yeah, a3 looks possible, though I don't think it's ever played. But why not play c3 and prepare your build-up? And black here has many options. Normally he just castles, and now h3 is normally played, but not always. White can play d4 straight away.
Allow the pin.
Allowing the pin.
Seems to be annoying.
It is. White's going for dynamism. Maybe hopes that the bishop will be misplaced. And now bishop e3 is the normal shoring up d4.
Oh, a little trap here. If takes, then there's bishop d5. Then.
Yeah, there's a nice little trap there. That comes up quite a lot in the Ruy Lopez. Watch out for that one. And after bishop e3, black can just take on d4. I think he normally does. And after c takes, the one option is to play knight a5, bishop c2, c5, hitting at the centre.
Yeah.
And another option is instead of knight a5 to play d5. When after e5, knight e4 is played, and knight c3, and black takes it, and on we go. And white has some chances of bishop reroute to c2 and line up on that diagonal, but black can nullify that with bishop h5 to g6.
Yeah.
But white may be able to push his kingside pawns forward, and black can play knight a5 to c4, play c5, maybe b4, striking at the white pawn chain.
Right.
Again, interesting play ensues.
Yeah.
But generally, white plays 9 h3 instead of d4. Is move 9, isn't it? h3.
Yep.
Yeah, and here we reach almost the main starting position of the closed Ruy Lopez, where there are many options for black. The old line, which is still played these days, is knight a5, the Shigarin variation, named after Mikhail Shigarin, the Russian player of the late 19th, early 20th centuries. And bishop c2, need to preserve that bishop, and black plays c5. And again, white can play slowly with d3, but d4 is the most challenging move. And here, queen c7 is the main line, but knight d7 has been knight d7 I believe is the Keres variation instead of queen c7. But queen c7 is more normal. It's certainly there are many games, particularly in the first half of the 20th century, with this move. Of course, black's pawn on e5 needed to be defended.
Yeah.
So the knight bd2 would normally.
But it's
follow.
also implying there's going to be pressure down the c file later.
If black opens the c file, which he can do now and frequently does, then black can gain play down the c file. So c takes d4, c takes, and now there are various moves. Knight c6 is played, and there is line after d5, knight b4, bishop b1, and black now watch out his knight doesn't get trapped, so he plays a5 and a3, knight a6, and on we go. Okay, so going back to the position after queen c7. Well, no. Okay, so c takes d4, c takes d4. Bishop b7 is also played, or bishop d7. White may, if he wishes, close the centre.
It's weakening some dark squares a bit. Plays d5.
Yeah, White's trying to place d5 to try and cramp black. Utilise his space advantage, and then he'll probably play on the king side, try and neutralise the c file pressure.
Yeah.
Or White can play a move like knight f1, and when the centre remains fluid. But sometimes in these kind of positions, black can play d5. I don't think it's good here, but it's a possibility to be borne in mind. If White doesn't close the centre, black can sometimes create a pawn mass.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. And so the Shigarin line is still holding up. But one thing, just going back to the position after is we should after queen c7. Black sometimes has to be careful about his knight on a5. This is why some people have been put off this line. Sometimes this knight can end up on a bad circuit. If White gets, say, both d5 and b3 in, then black's knight will be stuck on the circuit of a5, b7 and d8.
Yeah.
So if White plays d5, black probably wants to reroute the knight quickly round to c4.
Yeah. c5. So he plays c4?
No, but black plays knight c4. C4 is also possible, but knight c4, so that it gets the b6 square.
Right. I was thinking actually, if c4 here, then maybe knight b7 c5.
Yeah, there's also popular. Just generally, this position, black should watch out for that knight.
Yes.
It can become quite a poor
before
piece.
b3 happens. Yeah.
But what's particular about it? If black puts the knight back on b7, later on.
Yeah.
Then White can play b4.
Yeah, stopping knight c5.
Closing the knight off.
That would be useful for peeling open the a file as well.
And possibly,
a4.
as Karpov has done on several occasions.
Yeah, so you've got to be a bit wary about this knight.
Yeah. The thing is, as has been said, Black's problems here is with capacity. Well, he doesn't seem to be short of space. His pieces have less freedom of development than White's. If Black could swap off a pair of minor pieces, he would be much more comfortable than he actually is.
Right. Yeah.
But okay, so going back to the position after 9h3. 9h3. A popular option these days is knight b8, which looks rather odd, moving your knight back to b8 on move 9. But this is the Breyer variation.
Yeah.
And Black's plan is to immediately reroute the knight to d7, shoring up the e4 pawn, e5 pawn. So if White plays d4, then Black just plays knight d7.
Apparently Spassky played this, according to my Wiki crib sheet here, in the 1960s. Adopted by Spassky and others in particular. Plessy's back-to-back wins over Tau at Blitzville in 1965 did much to enhance its reputation, and he has a career plus score with Breyer. So with knight b8, black frees the c-pawn and intends to route the knight to d7, which supports e5. So the main line is d5 here, apparently, knight b7.
Black plays bishop b7 here.
Oh, sorry, knight d2, bishop d7. I think actually we've got the move order slightly different to this. It doesn't matter, I suppose.
Will White play d5 as quickly as that, does he?
Actually, I'm not sure. You go through the move order that you think. Sorry, is it?
Knight b8 is the Breyer.
Okay, so knight b8 here.
And White generally plays d4, knight b d7.
Yeah.
And White plays knight d2.
Knight d2.
Is that what it says there?
Yeah, 11 knight bd2. Yeah, 11 knight bd2.
And now Black can play c5 possibly.
Right.
Or bishop b7.
Yes.
And if White does play d5, Black will play c6 and reaching a kind of Najdorf type position.
Yeah, Sicilian,
in a sense.
getting rid of the c-pawn.
There's some similarities to Najdorf.
Yeah.
For
the d-pawn.
Black needs to chip away at that to gain space for his pieces.
Yeah.
And
c5.
And bishop c2. But I think White could probably do better than this. Black looks fine already here to me. Black's not far off from playing d5 here, it has to be said.
Yeah.
So I expect White can do a bit better than that. Probably he played d5 too early, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's the main line.
Actually, it's got 12 bishop c2.
Yeah, I think that's what I thought. Bishop c2 seems more.
So after rook e8, so you keep knight f1.
Bishop drops back, does it?
Yeah.
Knight g3. And we have a typical Ruy Lopez position.
Yeah.
Black is very solid. He can fidget his bishop.
Yeah.
White has an advantage in space.
And also that stops the knight, of course, coming to f5, which is useful.
White can maybe play a4 at some stage.
Yeah.
Interesting game.
Yeah. Black can still go for c5 at some point, maybe.
Black can and probably will. Okay, so that's the Breyer. So back to 9h3 again. And another variation is the Smyslov with h6.
h6.
Which is just defends the g5 square from a knight landing on it, and the basic plan is just to strong point e5. So
right.
White plays d4, rook e8, knight b d2.
All right, yes.
And bishop f8.
I see. So not allowing all these knight g5s means there's a perk of being able to move the rook away from f7.
Yeah. And
do this and strong point e5.
Yeah, Black is not intending to exchange on d4 anytime soon. He just keeps it rock solid.
Yeah.
And when White manoeuvres the knight round to g3, or he may move it to e3, then g6 will likely come.
Yeah. And then bishop g7 maybe.
Yeah. And Black can do his usual bishop b7, put the knight on a5 maybe. It's likely to be a long, tough game.
Yes, it looks serious and solid compared to many other openings, doesn't it? It looks like some sort of game from a World Championship. You'd expect a classical kind of struggle on the centre.
I actually played this in what I believe was against Alex Chernayev, famous in London at least, Russian Grandmaster.
Yes.
In what I think was the first game he ever played in Britain, when in the first round of the Lloyds Bank Masters, possibly 1992.
Yeah.
I played this against him. He wasn't actually a Grandmaster then.
Yeah.
And a very, very long, hard game with an adjournment ensued, but I think I lost on move 78 or something.
All right.
But it was a very long, complex game, which often results from a closed system like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more system we should look at. We look at the Zaitsev. So back to h3 again. 9h3.
Oh, 9h3.
and the Zaitsev is bishop b7.
So a lot of people are getting names variations after this h3. It's a critical juncture. It's a junction point. It's like the king's cross of chess openings. There's lots of
Well, it is. I mean, black has to decide, how to position his pieces.
Yeah.
And there are various ways, and it's certainly not clear which is best. And white can play, slowly with d3 again, but d4 is probably best. And after rook e8...
So black's putting pressure on e4 here potentially, so white's potentially trying to do something about that more.
Black generally plays rook e8 here, where we reach a very famous drawing variation, where white plays knight g5. This has happened many times.
Oh,
and
dear.
black plays rook f8.
Oh dear.
And the knight goes back to f3.
So they might use this in tournaments where they're not allowed to offer a draw. They might play this line.
They might. It may be seen as being
it's naughty.
Too obvious.
It's too naughty, yeah.
But I think stopping people agreeing a draw is also too naughty. That's just my opinion.
You think that draw rule shouldn't be enforced in tournaments?
I do not like that rule, no. Yeah. But the thing is, after bishop b7, d4, this is the problem with the Zaitsev, is black doesn't have very many other particularly good moves apart from rook e8.
What about h6? Is that too...
I think h6...
is that loose? Is it
there is some reason why h6 isn't played.
I wonder why
it's not knight
maybe
8.
takes and bishop d5 looks good.
I don't think it is that. That generally doesn't...
it looks like a nasty pin though, doesn't it?
That generally doesn't work, because black just takes it and then rounds up the d-pawn and liquidates the centre. It's probably knight h4. I don't know.
Should we just engine check this, just out of interest, to stop this repetition, see what's going on here? Oh no, it's about equal. Apparently h6 might be possible. Well, on brief analysis anyway.
It's just queen e2 is the best move, which looks very unlikely, so we shouldn't really be looking at what Fritz says in these positions. It hasn't analysed them to the depth that players have.
Yeah. Okay.
So main problem with the Zaitsev is white, can, if not exactly force a draw. Black doesn't have great options apart from rook e8.
Yes.
And after knight bd2, which is logical, then black can play bishop f8, similar to the Smyslov.
Yes.
So he hasn't played h6, but his bishop's on b7.
Yeah, that's quite useful, isn't it? Instead of h6 to have bishop b7, if you can get it without the draw.
But that may weaken the f5 square, so it's debatable where black wants that bishop.
Yeah.
Bishop b7 is more dynamic, a bit reminiscent of the archangel variations we looked at earlier, whereas bishop on f8 is not dynamic.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of mix.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's ideal. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is being played by very strong players, so presumably it's absolutely fine. White can also play a4
here
instead of knight bd2. This is a move. It hasn't come up very much, but this is frequently played by white. White has a lever on the a file, so he can leave the pawn on a4 and open the a file at a time of his choosing. This is a useful concept in the Ruy Lopez. But also, of course, he has to watch out for his e pawn. So the four main variations of the close, the Shigarin, Smyslov, Brer and Zaitsev, all lead to similar kinds of play. White would generally, not always, attack on the king side. Black will maintain a solid structure. Though of course there are lines where black plays more dynamically by taking on d4 and playing c5. But these lines are very complex and very heavily analysed, and they're not as fashionable at top level as they used to be. Black is now playing more dynamic lines with an early bishop c5 or the archangel with bishop b7 more frequently to try and unbalance it, rather than letting white have a small but slight edge in a position where he's quite comfortable. He knows where the pieces go.
Actually, there are some other move lines mentioned by Wiki here. The Karpov variation, knight d7.
Oh, yes, Karpov's played knight d7, yes.
In the 1990 World Championship match, but Kasparov achieved a significant advantage against it in the 18th game.
After d4 he played bishop f6, is that right?
Possibly, yeah. Also mentioned is the Kolmov variation, bishop e6.
Oh yes, Ratbear Holmov. This is
was popular in the 1980s, but is now rarely played, apparently.
Yes, I do remember seeing that.
It's amazing, so many names come after h3 of the deviation. I didn't really realise that before.
A lot of them are Russian grandmasters, you notice.
They've taken over the Ruy Lopez theory.
They analysed Ruy Lopez to the nth degree. Any other lines of significance?
I can't see any. We've covered the Barley variation. Well, it usually plays h3 instead of d4, but if d4 was played,
We looked at d4.
oh yeah, we did quickly look at d4, didn't we? Well, not quickly. Yeah, bishop g4. Okay, so that's why h3. So no, we've mentioned the Chigorin variation, haven't we? With
Yes.
9 knight a5.
Absolutely.
Let's just go back. What we're talking about. So h3, we've got all the branches here.
Yes.
Chigorin variation with knight a5. Breyer variation with
Knight b8.
Knight b8.
We looked at that.
The Zaitsev variation is
Bishop b7.
bishop e7. The Karpov variation is knight d7. The Kolmov variation is bishop e6. The Smyslov variation is h6. It's amazing. Amazing.
And I think that's about it for today.
Yes.
and another day we'll look at the alternatives that Black has to 3a6.
I don't know if it's my style of play. I think I like to look at more maybe as a higher priority a particular variation than Sicilian. They seem to be a lot more exciting for my style. What do you think? Sicilian variations are more exciting, but no, this is all classical stuff and a bedrock of theory, isn't it?
I think we should finish off the Ruy Lopez survey.
Yeah.
Then maybe look at some Sicilians if you like.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. It's been educational for me. I hope it's educational for all you on YouTube. Yeah, thanks, Paul, coming. And well done on the weekend again, Paul. So,
Okay, thank you.
comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.